Soy Marina Crocianduesa y les doy la más cordial bienvenida a Acento Musical. Acento Musical es un programa de entrevistas únicas a figuras contemporáneas de la música clásica, quienes están realizando aportes significativos al arte musical de sus países y áreas de influencia. Hoy tenemos el honor y privilegio de presentarles a la excelente pianista y destacada educadora en el ámbito musical de la ciudad de Richmond, Virginia, Estados Unidos, la doctora Sonia Vlahcevic, mejor conocida como Dr. V, en un programa que hemos titulado Sonia Vlahcevic, voz y alma musical inspiradoras. Dr. V ha dedicado su carrera a formar y guiar generaciones de músicos, no solo a través de su excepcional enseñanza en la Universidad Virginia Commonwealth University, en la que ha trabajado por más de 40 años, sino también mediante el firme compromiso con la expansión del repertorio y conocimiento de la música contemporánea para piano. Su influencia va más allá del aula, alcanzando a colegas pianistas, a profesores de música, a amigos, a estudiantes y a personas que han tenido la fortuna de estar en su presencia, delante de su sabiduría, su arte y su pasión. Hoy tenemos la oportunidad de escuchar a Dr. V contándonos sus experiencias musicales, sus experiencias como educadora y su visión sobre la educación musical. Sin duda, será una magnífica experiencia para ustedes escucharla y saber de sus vivencias. Aprovecho la oportunidad para invitarles a que se suscriban a Acento Musical y a que nos acompañen en programas futuros. Gracias por estar con nosotros.
My career began in Boston at the New England Conservatory, where I received a bachelor's and a master's in piano performance. I did, however, have several opportunities to teach other students, so they gave me kind of an apprenticeship. And after I graduated with my degrees, they asked me to join the faculty. And that was phenomenal because I was going to be one of the teachers at the conservatory. I was also looking for a husband and found the man of my life. And he was a doctor from Croatia. And when he got a job in Richmond, of course, I came and left my beloved city. However, he always looked out for me and made sure there was a school I could teach at. So I went there, and they had no opening. So I decided I'll leave my little resume, and they called me because they have an overload of students. And I taught solfege the first semester. And then the next semester, they offered me a full-time position with tenure track. I've been there ever since, and it's been wonderful. A good piano teacher should have the brains to look at the student and evaluate not only what they do musically, but who they are as people. Because that teacher does not only have to teach technique and phrasing, but has to understand the character of that child in order not to have them be upset or feel pressured, and has to develop a relationship, not just be a teacher and give them technique. Music Around the World allowed me to present a piece that is extraordinary by a Latvian composer. And I had the great fortune of performing it in Latvia with my friend, who's the other pianist, and the composer was there. So I feel very comfortable talking about the piece because he loved how we played it. So this is a piece by Vasks, Peters Vask, and he had taken a journey back to Nazi domination of the world when they took Latvians out and destroyed the nation. And he wrote this piece in memoriam of that tragedy. So when I spoke to the audience in the workshop, it was not about dates and things from text. It was how he felt, why he wrote the piece, and how to play it. So the score that he wrote was extremely contemporary. There are no notes, lines, and all different kinds of graphic things for us to do. So we had to interpret the piece personally, which is one good thing about contemporary music. So when we did it and he liked it, it was great. In my presentation, I told this to the audience, and that's more important than giving dates and talking about history. I also walk when I'm at giving presentations so I can see everybody around, and I try to have eye contact with them. Then I ask them questions like, how would you feel if you had to write a piece about such a tragedy? So although we will play contemporary things that may not please you, they are tragic. The contemporary festival that I created was because I taught a course called Music since 1945, because we did not have contemporary music at our school. And I thought, wait a minute, why don't I do this for the piano? I looked around and I realized that this wonderful teachers in the Richmond Music Teachers Association had sonata festivals, and then they had Bach festivals, but there was no contemporary festival. So I thought, of course, we'll do a contemporary festival. The problem was, however, that I had to get teachers to want to teach the music. So I created a workshop for them and took out pieces and showed them just how simple it was if you just analyze the music. Actually, it's kind of tonal and fun, and that's what they did. There were 4 concerts, and we had 12 students, and I was just delighted. In the 4th concert and last one, we had 22 students, and I was ecstatic. I think that what was most rewarding from the workshops was that the teachers came and looked as if they were going to be interested in doing it, and they were. But the rewarding part was the children. There were many aspects. 1, they all acted professionally. 2, they were all dressed up for the occasion. 3, all the pieces were memorized. But extraordinary, we had a child who composed her own composition. Can you imagine the interest the teacher had in teaching that child? That's a reward. Having heard that, I thought, I have arrived. My lecture recitals that are both here and abroad have always been about the composers and the music. And I find that The audience gets to know another composer through his music, and I have to explain that relationship. It is most important for me because I am a teacher to expose my friends to what I like, whether they like it or not. And interestingly enough, they usually like the most odd or the most unusual piece that we do. And that's very rewarding. They always say that, yeah, I really like that lady who played the flute and sang at the same time while you bobbed the piano. That's very nice. I'm very fortunate that I have traveled the world because I was a member of the College Music Society. And every second year they offer international conferences throughout the world. And I have been accepted to all of them. So I've been for 20 years traveling abroad to Asia, Europe, and South America, and Australia. Thank you. I, in fact, just love being on the stage. I, in fact, love being in a beautiful gown. I, in fact, love the rapport I establish with the audience because I talk to them and they answer me. They're very kind in doing that. I give examples. They have to also participate in the examples. So I am a teacher. Thank you, Robbie, for coming, because I wanted to demonstrate to you some music that is going on in the 20th and 21st century. And perhaps you'll understand why some of it sounds a little bit bizarre or a little bit different, or is it music at all? So to back up, I would like to tell you that in my teaching, I have come to realize that everything is cyclical. For instance, in the year 1000 in Western music, notation was discovered, and that led from singing orally, Gregorian chant, to writing polyphony. And after that, 1300 years later, Ars Nova developed into what became the Renaissance for the most beautiful a cappella, 9-part, 8-part singing. Just wonderful. And that had to come to an end because at around 1600 in Florence, while Rome was glorifying in their a cappella singing, a group of camerata, a group of artisans, decided the word should not be the mistress of the music. We want to hear the words, not the polyphony. So they began opera. And with opera, you needed instrumental intermissions while scenery was being changed. And that gave rise to needing more instruments, louder and bigger. So the development of instrumental music began at around 1600. The Chopin Mazurka that I played in memory of my husband was one of his favorite pieces because I played it frequently at home. And he would hear me practicing. My husband has never attended any of my recitals. He brings me, he puts me on the stage, he leaves and he paces back and forth in the lobby while I'm playing. He cannot sit inside because he's so nervous. And then he asks all my friends how I did. You don't think he asked me, because he would like to know just how I did. So I thought, in this concert that you're referring to, it was a dedication concert for the hall, and I'll play this for him, and he will be here with me in the hall. Well, it occurred to me as I was preparing for today and put this necklace on that it was the first beautiful piece that my husband bought for me, and I wore it 17 years ago when we dedicated this hall that he purchased for me. And I thought, why don't I could just conclude the program by playing his favorite piece? The concert hall at the Singleton Center in my name was presented to me by my husband about a year before he died. He learned that he was going to die from a terrible cancerous disease, and he wanted me to have a legacy because he had established his own legacies because he was a chairman of gastroenterology at MCV and had all of that stuff there. And he knew that I had a charming but windowless studio in the basement of the Singleton Center for years, and he did not want me basement. So he bought the hall so that my name would be spread all over the hall upstairs and people would remember me. And that is my legacy. My travels began because my husband was an academic, and academic doctors met a lot in Europe for conferences. So we would go to conferences at different places in the world, and while I would be there, I would like to get a real instrument. And he thought, why do you want an instrument? You're here. And I said, well, I'll remember it when I take it back. And so we went to China years and years ago when you were hardly prohibited to go, but doctors went. And I said, I'm going to get an instrument. He said, you're not leaving me. I said, I need an instrument. I'll get a cab and I'll be right back. And someone will give me a note. And he said, you're not leaving me. Well, third time I won. And he said, if you don't come back, I'm going to be very angry. I got my instrument and brought it back to the hotel. That set the precedent for every time I went. And especially with the College Music Society conferences, when I brought them back to my studio, it reminded me of how lucky I was to be participating in those conferences, and it reminded me of what good times I had. My musical past, fortunately, was in Boston, and it was years ago when the Russians opened up their country to allow all of these dynamic performers to come. Ashkenazi, Gilels, Oistrach, all of these big names I saw and heard person to person and stood on the stage with them. That was inspirational. But of course, I could not appreciate that without two people in my life. And one was my teacher at the conservatory, and the other was my mentor at the Chopin Institute in Warsaw. These two people taught me to listen for sound and how to interpret phrases. Of all the students I've taught, there are hundreds because I teach classes as well. But many of them come back to me and visit. It seems that by habit, every year I create a concert date in October. And of course, last October was to have been my final faculty concert, but I couldn't help myself and I got a date anyway, not knowing what I would do. But then it occurred to me, I've been teaching for so long, there must be somebody somewhere who still plays the piano. So I started thinking about people that I have been in contact with over the last 10, 20 years. And I emailed or called them and asked if they would be interested in performing on my recital. Shock, right? No immediate answer, but they thought it was a wonderful idea. So I thought, okay, spring came, I hear nothing from any of them. Then finally, in the middle of the summer, I send them an email and I say, give me your name, give me the 5-minute piece you're going to perform, and tell me in 2 sentences what I should write about you. Then came the moans and the groans. Right. Oh, I can't do it. I'm having a hip operation. I'm terribly sorry. Okay, someone fell through a false floor in their house. Fortunately, they're well. They couldn't do it. So now I'm going from 15 people down to around 10. So everything is going well and everybody sends in information then. And then 3 weeks ago, Marina, one of my students, is out walking and exercising, bypasses a dog, trips, and breaks her elbow. I'm now down to 5 students. Now it's getting a little embarrassing. So, not really, because they are all out there. They're just afraid to play.
There are 3 prominent things that she has taught me over the years here, which this piece, I think, shows. One, she taught me how to create mellifluous, lush, gorgeous, elegant sound. 2, she taught it this piece, well, and as she did, it teaches me how to count to 2. And 3, it teaches me, well, it teaches me, and it's always taught me, she has always taught me how to be a poet.
So I was Dr. V's student about 12 years ago. I graduated with my master's degree, but I think the way we met, Dr. V and I, it was quite interesting. So I had just arrived to this country from Latvia, and I wanted to do something with my degree, so I auditioned for VCU. But I wasn't sure if I really can and want to study, and it's going to be too difficult. And so a few days I couldn't decide. But then about 3 days later, a lady calls me and says she's Dr. V from VCU and that I should study and that everything will be okay and that I should study with her. So I thought, this is really nice. Professors are calling up. That must be a really good school. Well, that kind of convinced me and I became her student and it was a wonderful time and I learned so much. But I think that this example describes how Dr. V is. She's a perfect pedagogue. She is our mentor. She always gives the right advice. She is our friend. So she always is friendly. And she is our inspiration. She always inspires us to do things. And I think that describes a perfect pedagogue. Thank you, Dr. V.
I had been home watching the television, and there was on the PBS channel a concert, VC Orchestra and faculty. And there was a woman at the keyboard who I found mesmerizing, and she played the Ginastera Danzas Argentinas, and she won me over. And I was like, who is this woman? Fast forward to that few days later in the box office, here she is. So I began to tell her about how I can't go back to Duke University because of circumstances beyond my control, and I really miss music. I really enjoyed her playing, and she was very cordial and patient. And as she left, as I recall, she said something to the effect of, "You need to figure out your life," right? 2 months later, just weeks before the fall semester, she facilitated my being accepted as a piano major here at ECU. And 5 years later, she helped me to finish up my master's in piano performance here. She helped me to get a teaching position here while I was working on my grad degree, which gave me a lot of experience teaching. She mentioned this concert over Christmas cookies last year. My exact words were, "Wow, I'd love to come hear that concert." And she said, "You're not coming. You're going to play." I didn't have a choice, and I'm glad she didn't give me a choice. So forgive the mistakes on the notes, but my heart is to you, Dr. V. Thank you.
This is on behalf of your alumni that played tonight here. And this is for Dr. Sonia Vlahcevic, an impressive scholar, a unique teacher and mentor who has conquered the music world with her conferences and performances. Dr. Sonia Vlahcevic is admired and loved by all her alumni, for whom she is a constant inspiration. With deepest appreciation for all these years of music, leadership, and friendship, gratefully, Marina Anduesa, Rutas Medina Starkett, Brian Wade, Sondra, Joshua, and Martin Harris.
So I emailed one of them the other day and said, "What have I given you?" And I'm going to read you his answer, if I may. Excuse me. Exciting. I think the number one thing you taught me, not necessarily piano, but how to engage with music at an artistic level. I learned to ask questions like, what does the melodic shape and form mean to me? Or, when I play the piano, how does that change the sound and affect my audience? While I find most people are learning the notes and techniques, they have limited understanding of the artistry behind these things. Knowing how to do this has informed everything I do in my life as a musician and a person. And because of that, I have established my own voice and not copied someone else's. And I must tell you that that's exactly how I teach. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is a true honor to be here. We see her now coming on stage with elegance, wearing a gorgeous gown. Before beginning her insightful talks that preceded each of her captivating and expressive performances. Her warmth, her wisdom, her eloquence, her brilliance, her presence, all of these make her unforgettable. Each recital was a true celebration of music. uniting the tradition alongside with the discovery, and even sharing the thrill of the world premiere of the work that she had herself commissioned. She also made us laugh. Who can forget her lines, her October invitation? I still smile at the line, "Come to my sixth final piano." Her recitals were also a place for family, always surrounded by the love of her songs. Andrea, Sasha, you're present.
It's been wonderful. And why? First, academic freedom. Next, not only was I able to teach piano forever, but I was able to create my own courses and teach them. What could be better than that? How about an ego trip, right? But most of all, it was my students. It's the rapport that I created with them, whether they liked it or not. It's the rapport that they made me work better, harder, because they're smarter than I'll ever be. I read, I've forgotten where, in an article by Krista McKellen, the astronaut and teacher. Remember that from New Hampshire? She wrote, "I touch the future, I teach." I'm going to paraphrase that for myself. I'm so taken with that. I have touched the future, and I am a teacher. Thank you.